So today we have a Mercury and retrograde Cazimi. A Cazimi is when we have a planet within 17 minutes of the sun, and this is very close and doesn't happen very often. So Mercury will start to Cazimi today at 3:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. At this time, it will be just starting to go into Cazimi and will not be at the exact Cazimi yet. But once it hits Cazimi, where it's working its way to conjoin the sun, which will be exactly when the sun and Mercury will be at 14 degrees and 27 minutes tropical Sagittarius. This is an auspicious time to do all things that are associated with the planet Mercury, and we will talk about what these things are later in the video. From 6:10 p.m. to 6:27 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Mercury will be exactly Cazimi from 6:10 p.m. to 6:27 p.m. And this chart here shows that. At 6:28 until 9:03 p.m., Mercury will still be in Cazimi, but instead of working its way to conjoin the sun, it will have already reached the sun exactly, which is that 14 degrees and 27 minutes Sagittarius. And then it will be moving its way. It'll be moving away from the sun. So during this time, it's still a good time to do those things associated with the planet Mercury. But if you can, it is even more auspicious if you can do it when Mercury is moving to conjoin the sun, or when it's exact Cazimi. And again, that time from when it's moving to join the sun to exact Cazimi is from 3:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3:20 p.m. to 6:27 p.m. But it's still a good time also from 6:10 p.m. Excuse me, 6:27 p.m. to 9:03 p.m. It's still a good time because it's within that 17 minutes. It is just moving away from the sun. So let's talk about what is auspicious to do during this according to the planet Mercury. Mercury has to do with anything related to communication, and with Mercury retrograde, I suspect many of you have had a lot of miscommunications recently or misunderstandings. And when Mercury is retrograde, as it is now, you have to be impeccable with your communication. When Mercury is retrograde, if you are not impeccable with your communication, it is a strong possibility that will just end up leading to arguments. You have to be impeccable with your communication during this time. So, this is a time of Mercury where it's all about miscommunications, but now it's Mercury Cazimi. It's with the sun. These miscommunications or arguments could get resolved. It could be a good time for communications of all kinds, writing a letter, texting, making a phone call, reaching out, even socializing and having a good conversation. Also, retrogrades, people from the past have a way of showing up, or we are more inclined to reach out to someone from the past. So it can be a good time to reconnect with old people from your past, old friends. Cars can fall into Mercury as well because Mercury likes to be mobile. And since it's a retrograde too, it's a really good time if you're not doing anything of that, of what was just mentioned, of what it's a good time for Mercury Cazimi to do. But the retrograde times are always good to redo, research, refine, all throughout the Mercury retrograde cycle. Not just the Cazimi again, to reorganize, clear the clutter, and to go over anything with basically a fine-tooth comb, just so that you can make things better. So that can be done too as well, since it's a retrograde, and retrogrades are excellent for that. So Mercury is actually considered to not function that well in Sagittarius, where this Cazimi is taking place. But we have something special going on here called reception. Mercury is in Sagittarius here, but Jupiter is in Gemini, and these two are both in the signs that each other rule. So Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Mercury rules Gemini, and Jupiter is in Gemini and Mercury is in Sagittarius. So when this reception happens, it actually allows them to have a harmonious exchange where they are working well together and can do good things in each other's signs. This reception is basically a mitigating force to Mercury not functioning well in Sagittarius. And with Mercury and Cazimi, Mercury is golden here. So reach out to people, write that important letter, get some writing done, even just writing, if you're writing a book. Because it's retrograde, fix something important, whatever it is, that's basically mercurial. So Jupiter here, with part of that reception that I was talking about, Jupiter has to do with spiritual knowledge, wisdom, traveling, spiritual leaders. And so there could be an aspect to that as well with the Mercury retrograde, to what is currently happening. And I feel like this alignment calls for a lot of introspection and growth, which is something you do mostly in solitude. But at Mercury Cazimi, you may also want to just reach out to others or do other mercurial things as well, because positive things can become of it. And the moon is conjunct Pluto as well today. It's moving past a conjunction with Pluto. And it is what we call an opposition to Mars as well. So some of you with this might be coming down from some kind of upheaval with this as well. Like maybe it happened earlier in the day. There's like possibly some kind of upheaval with that kind of energy dynamic mixed with a Mercury retrograde, with the moon conjoining Pluto, but then also being opposite Mars, okay? And you may also feel impatient, and it would be good to not let those things get out of hand with this, especially since we are working to make the most out of this Mercury Cazimi. You may with Pluto being one of the key players here, also need to do some psychological introspection, and you may want to use this energy instead of making brash decisions. If you can remember to use it for motivation and personal strength and willpower, but it might be kind of hard to not make those brash decisions. Remember, motivation, personal strength, and willpower. And make sure with these planets, the moon, Mars, and Pluto being in Aquarius and Leo, can be a little bit stubborn. So make sure you don't let that get in the way of things. Don't let that get in the way of receiving the positive Mercury Cazimi benefits.